All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, John Musgrave, Vietnam veteran, so a warrior hero in his own right, prolific writer. I've come to find in getting to know him, reading his bio, he's written a ton and, gotten rave reviews. So we are truly blessed and grateful to have you. I'm going to read his bio. He's done some things. John Musgrave was born in the state of Missouri in 1948. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps at age 17, volunteering for service in Vietnam as an infantryman. John served with Delta Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Division in Quang Tri Province, Northern I Corps. He was wounded 3 times in his 11 and a half months in country, resulting in his permanent disability. After a long hospitalization, John was medically retired from the Marine Corps as a corporal in 1969. John joined Vietnam Veterans Against the War, where he served in a leadership role until 1973. John graduated from Ottawa University in 72 and attended graduate school at the University of Kansas. John was a committee member and spokesperson for the KU Vietnam Memorial Committee, which built the first freestanding Vietnam memorial on any college campus in the U.S. He has spoken at the National Vietnam Memorial and on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. John has worked with Fort Riley's 1st Infantry Division and the National Veterans Wellness and Healing Center, helping wounded warriors and their families deal with problems associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. He was decorated for his active duty service and has received many awards for his work since retirement. In Washington, D.C. in 1987, he was awarded the Vietnam Veterans National Medal by the National Vietnam Veterans Coalition, made up of more than 50 Vietnam veteran organizations nationwide. In 1990, John was recognized by the governor of Kansas as being one of the outstanding leaders in the state and a positive role model for fellow Kansans to follow. He was a featured participant in the Ken Burns documentary, The Vietnam War, released in September 2017, and delivered the keynote address to the launch of the new suicide prevention program, Be There for Vets, sponsored by Johnson & Johnson in November 2017. John was co-author of the book, The Vietnam Years, 1,000 Questions and Answers, with decorated Vietnam veteran and military historian Mike Clodfelter. He is also the author of 2 books of poetry on snipers, laughter, and death, and Under a Flare-Lit Sky. In April 2017, John was honored with the Robert A. Gannon Award for Poetry by the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation for his 3rd book, Notes to the Man Who Shot Me, presented to him by the Commandant of the Marine Corps at the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia. John's memoir, The Education of Corporal John Musgrave, Vietnam and Its Aftermath, was released on November 2nd, 2021. He is blissfully married to Shannon Musgrave, who has accompanied him here tonight. They are the proud and lucky parents of 4 children, Lillian, Daniel, Rye, and Madeline. John and his family live in historic Baldwin City, Kansas, with their 2 rescued dogs and 2 cats. So as I said, highly accomplished, prolific writer. John, please.
Good evening. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening. I always think back whenever I come up to a podium to one of my jobs as a young Marine NCO at Weapons Training Battalion, Quantico, Virginia, to give classes. and every Marine outline for every Marine class that I was ever forced to sit through or actually delivered myself had a line at the very top, and it said, "Open with a joke." Well, tonight is no joking matter. We just saw on that screen behind us that 20 veterans a day are dying by their own hand. And we can't even take comfort in it, it's only 20. Because there's those guys out there that we call ghost and secret agents that die on the street and die in homeless camps, and nobody knows they're veterans. So they don't get added to that toll. We're talking about a wound that is deadly, a wound with a half-life that is our whole life. This is so important that although I do a lot of public speaking, there are certain times when I don't think I possess the adequate words to address the issue that I'm standing before so many fine people. I want you to know just a few things from a Vietnam veteran's experience dealing with post-traumatic stress. Of course, we didn't have that when we were in. We called it the readjustment blues. But first of all, the average age of the combat Marine in Vietnam was 18. Almost all my buddies were teenagers. Many of them were dead before they'd been in the Marine Corps a year. As a Marine rifleman, we learned one of the necessities in order to survive is you have to get good with killing. You have to make friends with it. It has to become a part of you. It's a part of the job. It's a day at the office. And we knew that that long road that we wanted to travel so badly, that long road home, the only way to make it down that road was if we paved it with the bodies of our dead enemies. So we had to make peace with killing. For many of us, including myself, I just dehumanized them. I just took away every human right they had, discarded it, and they were gooks. And then I didn't have to feel like I was killing people because I was a Christian and an Eagle Scout. While I was in Vietnam, I never once dreamt about combat. I always dreamt about home and food. We were always hungry. I lost 32 pounds in the bush. But when I got home, I discovered that the dead sleep on your chest. They're waiting for you every night. for you to crawl between those covers. No matter how drunk you get, no matter how much you smoke, they're waiting for you. You'll never have a more faithful lover than a man that you've killed. So we're talking about coming home to a country that had changed. When I left for Vietnam in January of 1967, there wasn't a peace movement to speak of. I went to an anti-war thing on the plaza just before I left for boot camp. My best friend, who was going to boot camp with me, right behind me on my motorcycle, and it was like 15 or 20 guys. All of them looked like college professors carrying signs, "Get out of Vietnam now." And I thought, yeah, right, and blew them off. But in 1967, this country started having national demonstrations where thousands of people would show up. And by the time I came home, the peace movement seemed to be dictating the public mood about us, about their sons, the ones who loved this country enough to kill for it, the ones who loved this country enough to bleed for it, loved it enough to die for it. I had never thought I would be called a baby killer when I came home as a proud young Marine. I was lucky because I was in a hospital for a long time after my third wound. I'd been shot in the chest by an RPD light machine gun. And friends of mine died to rescue me, because that's what Marines do. It's drilled into us from boot camp, the first day of boot camp, where they literally alter our DNA to create young Marines out of 17 and 18-year-old kids who are fresh out of high school. We never leave our wounded. Twice I had to be rescued under fire. My unit, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, is known in Marine Corps history as the Walking Dead, because while we were with it in Vietnam, it suffered the highest casualties of any Marine infantry battalion in the history of the Marine Corps. I had been in country 10 days before I saw my first Marine die. And that's the day I made my deal with the devil. That's the day when I swore I will never kill another human being. However, I'm going to waste every gook I find. I made that deal, and it was so necessary. I needed to make that transition to be able to do my job and give everything I had to give from my buddies. When they brought me to Great Lakes Naval Hospital, north of Chicago, they flew us up from Scott Air Force Base, which by jet to Chicago is, 30 minutes? And yet we landed at Great Lakes at 10:30 at night. And they unloaded us under the cover of darkness, like they were ashamed of us. And I asked one of the doctors, because I was in critical condition, I still had to be examined before they take me straight up to the surgery ward. And I said, "Why'd you bring us here so late?" And he said, "For your protection." And I said, "What are you talking about? I'm home. I'm home. I don't need protection anymore. And he said, well, we've had people lining the fence along the runway, screaming curses at the wounded as they're carried off the evac planes. And we wanted to spare you that. And that's when I knew, uh-oh, everything's changed. Suddenly, I realized that we were going to be held responsible for a war that we had nothing to do with. It was our fight. It was our battle. But it wasn't our war. We didn't start it. We didn't want it. Although as young Marines, we had to act like we really wanted it. What they didn't prepare me for, and the Marine Corps prepared me as well as they could to do the job that the commandant wished for me to do. They taught me the mechanics of my job, but they didn't teach me was that one of the most grievous wounds I was going to suffer would not be a burst of machine gun fire in my chest. It would be the trauma that we lived with every day. It would be the trauma that in a unit with casualties so high, our motto was, you're never short, you're always next. A unit where I quit filling out my short timers calendar on my 9th month because I realized one day when I was getting ready to mark off that ever important extra day closer to home, that what the hell was I thinking? I wasn't going to go home alive. Not with the casualties we were suffering, and I'd already been wounded twice. And yet I had no idea that everything that we had did, everything that we had witnessed, everything that we had participated in had stopped being an experience right after it was over and started being trauma, which took a hold of our guts and prospered on our demise. Trauma makes a kind of a dirty deal with your memories. It says, I'll help you with those memories. You just keep me close. Just keep me close. I'll be your best friend. I'll always be here to back you up. When you have these memories, I'll be right there. If you'd asked me what trauma was when I came home, I wouldn't have known. I wasn't exactly a scholar in high school. But trauma became go-to guy. He helped me lift that bottle every night. He helped me when I'd wake up screaming in the night. He put the pistol in my hand after a long night of drinking and let me feel it under my chin and pressed against my temple. And he would call me a coward every night when I put that pistol back in the drawer and slipped between the covers to sleep with the dead. Didn't have the balls to do it, did you? You're not a man. Trauma works magic. Trauma changes the meaning of words. I stopped looking at my survival as a gift my buddies gave me with their lives and started looking at it as a burden. that I had survived because my buddies were dead. And that became the whole thing. I had killed them. I was the reason they were dead. Trauma took something, a sacrifice that beautiful, and turned it into a reason for me to blow my brains all over the roof of my trailer. And to convince myself that what I was doing was the best thing I could do for my family. They'll understand. They'll be relieved. I'll finally stop their worry. In 1972, the first National Vietnam Veterans Organization, the first national veterans organization to ever adopt post-traumatic stress and Agent Orange exposure as a national priority, was Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And I was in the steering committee meeting that voted on those. Then it was called PVS, Post-Vietnam Syndrome, because the World War II vets were pretty busy making fun of us because we were the crybaby veterans, looking for an easy buck from the VA. Later, when I was a counselor for disabled veterans, I would meet those World War II veterans after they retired, and their war came home with a vengeance. And they told me how wrong they had been when they had mocked us. So in the beginning, in my area, pardon me, things I'm allergic to are pretty loyal as well. I was the come-to guy for the counseling centers in Lawrence, Kansas, and the surrounding communities. If a veteran called them, they called me. Now, I'm responsible for all these lives. So I went back to the night that I had decided I was going to kill myself for sure. I was holding the pistol in my hand, already had a round chambered, safety was off, 1911 A1, one of the best handguns in the world. And my dogs, who I'd let out when I got home, came to the door and started scratching to come in, and well, I was responsible for them. I put the pistol down, I walked in, opened the door, and they came in like gangbusters and acted like they hadn't seen me in 5 years, and I was just taking in all that love when I had thought, while I was down on the floor with my dogs, holy shit, what am I doing? So I went back in the living room, took safety off, cleared the chamber, put the pistol back in the drawer, and said, if I really want to kill myself, I can do it tomorrow. When we were in the bush, we lived by our next breath. After I came home, I lived by 24 hours at a time. And that was my counseling tool. When a veteran would call me, I'd say, look, put it down, put it in a drawer. You don't need it tonight. If you really want to do this, you can do it tomorrow, but give yourself 24 hours to think about it and call me before you do anything else. And for years, that's how I kept people alive. Now, we had to keep revisiting it with some of the guys time and time again, but we had nowhere to turn. I was it for those guys. My God, we needed you so bad. You know, we needed Americans like you so bad that would step up and say, no, we won't leave our wounded either. But they weren't there. They weren't at the VA. They weren't anywhere. So we started setting up the first outreach centers on city streets. We had one here in Kansas City. We had them all over the country. VVAW chapters and all the psychiatrists that were training to come up with post-traumatic stress disorder were coming to our meetings to get their education. And finally got enough education to make enough people pay attention that they realized that from that day forward, from that day that they heard me speak, they were responsible, not just me, for all those young men and women who had come home. And look what it has grown into. I was always proud that we never left a wounded man on the field, and we never left our dead. I am so proud to be in the presence of so many people that are helping to save so many lives, because that's it. Bottom line, you're saving lives. They will die without you. We're warriors. We were bad motor scooters. We never backed down from the enemy. But now we're alone. Now is when we really need you. And thank God for every one of you. I hope I found the right words this evening. God bless you all. And remember, we never leave our wounded.